Welcome back to Not a Straight Line with me, Pete Daly-Dickson. This is the show that explores the non-linear journeys of artists and entrepreneurs to inspire you as you zigzag through your own non-straight line life. And this week, I'm joined by Charlie Palmero. Charlie was a chance acquaintance in a Cortex writing bootcamp run by Dan Coe. And I don't know, there was just something about him that made me think he would be a great guest for Not a Straight Line. And even though this was one of the first handful of episodes I recorded, I'll be honest with you, I didn't really know what I was doing. I did know right from the off with his answer to my first question that the conversation would be exactly the kind of journey that I envisaged for this podcast, and I wasn't wrong. We talked of a life lived in anger and frustration, almost devoid of satisfaction, before what can really only be described as a groundbreaking moment when his couples therapist suggested something which turned out to be the catalyst of Charlie's transformation to become the family-oriented, mindful, calm and charismatic man that he is today. He now lives in Madrid with a 9-to-5 job, but with strong aspirations to be an impactful writer. Charlie shares the zigs and zags of his journey that epitomize the non-straight line life that we've come to know over these episodes. So, dear listener, please allow me to introduce you to Charlie Palmero.
Things are not always a straight line, so you don't know what's going to come out of that networking opportunity.
I didn't know that. Tell me more about that.
Where do I get started?
Well, where do you want to start? I mean, that's the question, isn't it? I mean, I've got a starting question, which is like, when you look back in your life and you think about all the zigs and zags that your life's taken, is there any one in particular that stands out as being, a particularly big one, or was there trauma involved, or was the stakes felt particularly high for you? Where do you want to jump in? Because wherever we jump in, we can go forwards, we can go backwards, and we can just explore the non-straight line journey.
Well, first of all, I think, we exchanged a few messages over this. My life is full of zigzags. And there have been a few that are worth mentioning, like my first marriage, for example, which did not work after 4 years. But
when was that? How old were you, and how did you meet?
We met when I was working at an advertising company, a direct marketing company. She was doing telemarketing, and I was an account executive. We just hit it off. We dated for 4 years. We got married, but after 4 years,
how old were you, Charlie?
I got married when I was 26 and got divorced when I was 30. At that time, I felt that I hadn't lived life. So it was painful. Of course it was, parting ways with your relationship of 8 years. But at that time I had very clear.
Did you have any children?
No, we didn't. But at that time I had very clear that I wanted to steer my life in a different direction. So that's when I decided to pursue my MBA. I moved from Puerto Rico, where I was living at the time. I moved to Spain. And after a few months of sorrow, I got over it really quickly and felt like I was at the best point in my life, at the best stage in my life, when I started the MBA and started making all these friends that I still cherish 17 years later. So that was an inflection point. But the biggest one, I'd have to say, was last year when my wife of 10 years asked for a divorce. And I up to that point, I thought my life was, I had the life. I wasn't really enjoying life because I was depressed, and I was unhappy with life, with my career progress, with blaming everyone and everything but me for what was going on. I didn't realize it, but my ex-wife was trying to help me. She just didn't know how, and she thought she told me after we got divorced that she realized she was able to help me in a better way from outside than from the inside. But that turn, I sank really deep into depression. As an adult, I never thought I would cry, but I cried myself to sleep, for months in a row. I'm willing to bet that I cried more last year than I did in all of my childhood. That's how bad it was. But it was also a wake up call. This is what made me wake up and say, you know what, you have to take control of your life. You can't just keep on going around complaining and saying, the government, is not creating jobs, or life is not giving you any opportunities, or does it's not cutting you any breaks, or nobody's giving me any breaks, because the truth is nobody's coming to save you. You have to save yourself.
Absolutely. There's so much in what you've shared just in the first 3 minutes that we've been talking, Charlie, that, we could go any number of ways. But the first thought that comes to me is, I haven't even welcomed you to the podcast. It's like, it's just like, I mean, this podcast is known for deep conversations, but like, we just went for it. We just went right there. So firstly, Charlie Palmero, welcome to Not a Straight Line. It's a
Thank you, Pete.
privilege to have this time carved out with you finally. I mean, you've alluded there to that we had a few bits of back and forth. There was a tennis final which got in the way, and life gets in the way, obviously, as it does for all of us. But welcome. It's great to finally meet you face to face, if only virtually.
Yeah. It's great to be here. Thank you, Pete.
So you were married to two divorces, and I guess there's maybe part of you was thinking, I've been there, I've had that experience, I've learned from it. So what must that have been like for you, kind of hitting that wall for a second time? Did you think, fucking hell, what's going on?
Okay. So I mean, at first, my world just shattered. I didn't know what was going on.
Was it a surprise to you?
It was absolutely. It was. I mean, we were seeing a therapist, and like the second appointment, the therapist starts talking about separation. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And she's like, well, sometimes it just doesn't work out in a marriage. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Are you mad? And I look at my wife at the time, and she's crying. And she says, I think it's for the best. And I'm like, but, I mean, what? I mean, and we have two young kids. We have Charlie Jr., who just turned 8, and Sophia, who's turning 5 tomorrow, actually. And to me, this is like, where's this coming from? And at the time, I was also struggling with an advertising agency that I was, nothing more than a glorified freelancer. And I thought it was an agency just because I had a website, and I was working with freelancers that worked for me.
So that was your own business?
That was my own business, right? But I started doing well with it a year and a half before. But then somehow I just saw that the advertising, or the online or social media advertising space, got crowded really quickly, and there were all these gurus, doing these courses on how to set up your SMMA, with no money, and take 10K in less than 90 days, and of course that's all not true. They actually get rich selling the courses on how to set up your SMMA, and they actually don't even run social media marketing agencies. But anyway, I mean, at the time, it's like everything came crumbling down at the same time. So my family was destroyed, or it was a completely different concept now. And my agency was doing poorly, so I had to go back to a 9 to 5, where I still am. And it took me a while, because at the beginning I just felt like life is really unfair, and that's why I just drowned in my sorrows, and I thought I would never smile again. I thought I would never see a bright day again. I started at this job where I'm at in April, and people didn't see me smile or crack a joke until the Christmas dinner, But then I remember the date. For some reason, I just remember the date. It was January 12th of this year. I said, I've had it. I've had it with feeling sorry. I've had it with crying. I've had it with the life I've led. And I said, change of mindset. And I started reading like crazy. And I do a 3-hour commute every day right now, because I work in Madrid, but I live in Segovia. So I'm taking that time to read. Because I take a mid-range bus, like from city to city. I'm reading a lot on, well, different topics. Mindset, definitely, and then skill building. There are a few books that come to mind. One of them actually saved my sanity, was The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest. And another one that really, really loved was What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. So these are books that, when you start thinking about what you're reading, you're like, this is absolutely true. This is actually how the brain works. At least this is how my brain works, right?
So before you go on another one, just I want to go back to The Mountain Is You. I've seen it referenced. I've heard of it. I've not read it. But to describe a book as saving your sanity is, that's kind of kind of a big accolade for a book. So what was it specifically in The Mountain Is You that makes you talk about it in that way?
Well, there's one phrase that stuck with me. I mean, I have my notes because I actually want to write about it later. Yeah, that's one of the skills that I'm working on, writing online and writing to help other people. But there was this one phrase that I wrote, and it says, sometimes you have to be aware that sometimes things in life don't happen to you; they happen for you. It kept on going on how, life sometimes puts somebody else in your life, or the universe puts somebody else in your life for a reason, and then takes it away for an even better reason. And that's something that you have to learn from. The book, I would highly recommend it. I don't have any affiliate offers or anything like that. It's just a very powerful book, and it's a book that, for being a self development book or self help, however you want to call it, it's a book that has a very high revelation in the text. So you keep on reading. It's a page turner, really. It's a very easy book to read, and in fact, I think I'm just gonna go back to read it again because I'm sure I'm gonna discover a few treasures there that I skipped when I was just marveled at the at the ones that I discovered.
There is often a tendency with books like that. I mean, I've been reading self-development books since I was, 16, 17, 18 years old. You do sometimes get a sense that it's just the same stuff being said in a different way. So would you say that The Mountain Is You, that you were reading new things?
Yes, absolutely. At least to me. I mean, I've read other books, other self development books. There's another good one called "How to Master Your Emotions" by Thibaut Maurice. It's also a good book. It goes deeper and more specifically on your emotions. But I think that The Mountain Is You is just, it's full of treasures everywhere. It's like, I don't know. It just resonated so much with me and
Mm.
with what was on with me at the time. These are books that generate a lot of self-awareness, and this is something I sometimes write about this on X. Like, self-awareness and resilience is something that should be taught early on in life. They never teach you about it. They just say, you have to get a if you do good in school, if you do well in school, and you get a good job, and your life is set, and it's gonna.
Bullshit. Bullshit. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly. Exactly. And it's going to be a straight line up, and it's not. It's not a straight line. God, how many people do I know that personally and professionally think their life is going to be a straight line, and then until it's not, you know?
Mm.
And that's when you realize that we were not taught to be self-reliant, or to be self-aware, or to either even love ourselves first in an unselfish kind of way, so before we can love others, like how they say in airplanes, you have to put on your oxygen mask first, then you can help others. But they don't teach you that at school. They just want, they want you to become a stockholder's dream, hardworking, order following kind of person, and they don't teach you how to handle personal adversities, and I think it should be.
Yeah. And do you think the expectation is set early on then that life should, in inverted commas, be a straight line, and that if it isn't a straight line for you, that if you don't go from secondary school to college and college to a job and then promotion and then whatever, that if your life doesn't follow a straight line, that you've somehow failed? Do you think that that expectation is kind of, if not explicitly taught, then certainly absorbed young?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not explicitly taught, but that's the way society thinks. And then before you realize it, you're making comparisons with your buddy that graduated with you from college, and start looking at how well he's doing.
On
And
the outside.
on
On
the
the
outside,
outside.
of course, we never know what's going on inside, in their personal lives. But that's the first thing you see, and especially nowadays. We just see, the superficial things, the money, the success, the financial thing, and then in a very wrong way to analyze your life, you just put yourself down, and that's the wrong thing to do. You just have to probably be more self-aware and say, okay, what do I need to do to get where I want to be? Not where others expect me, because also you get the opinions of your parents, your brothers, your sisters, your friends, and I don't know. It's just.
And also in what you said there, Charlie, it's almost a sense of where I think I want to be based on what I know about myself and the world now. But as I start moving towards that, I might decide that I want to be somewhere else, and that's totally okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Just because I set off for a particular destination, doesn't mean I have to stick there.
Oh, absolutely. For years, I was convinced that the only path I wanted to follow was climb the corporate ladder because that's what I saw in my dad. My dad was a very successful executive at a pharmaceutical company in the United States. Of course, from the outside, everybody would see it again as a straight line, but I saw the levels of stress he handled because I lived with him until I
Mm.
was 18, right? And yes, he was very successful. But I remember one day I came back from high school. I found my dad in his bed, lying, looking at the ceiling, and he was wearing a full suit. I thought he was gonna die, and it was just because he had received really really bad news about an organizational change after he had put in a plan for like 3 years. A new boss came in and said, this organizational team doesn't work. We're gonna destroy everything you worked for. Again, people from the outside say, oh, look at him, he was so successful, he retired super early. But it took it took a personal toll, and he had to travel a lot. And I remember he was never there for my birthday because my birthday is in November, and that's when they were doing all the financial planning for the following year. And still, I saw his success, and I was like, that's what I want to be. I want to be. And then you get into the corporate world, and you start seeing that you have to play politics, and that you have to promote yourself, and sometimes you have to cross that fine line between taking credit and giving credit to the group as a manager, and it all becomes like very shady and really hazy, and I don't know, I just don't like the playing the politics part. That's why I think.
So you were kind of talking about your childhood a little bit, and then we jumped into you going into the corporate world. But I want to go back to that Charlie as a child. What was it? Did you have any siblings? Did you have any?
Oh yes, I have an older brother and three younger sisters.
Okay, so you're kind of top end of being in the middle, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. So what was Charlie into then? What kind of lit the spark inside young Charlie?
You know what? Music. It's funny. I've Part of my dad's career was that it meant that when I was 12, we had to leave my birth country, the Dominican Republic, and we moved to Puerto Rico, which at the time was not a very safe place to live in due to the crime. Later, it became a lot safer, but that was when I was already in college. So my parents were very apprehensive about letting us just like wander around the neighborhood, and we lived in a very good neighborhood, but it was quite lonely, and it was something that was very new to my parents, very different from the upbringing in the Dominican Republic. So I actually turned to music. I started collecting CDs, and when my brother went to college, he was, I mean, he's still one of my best friends. So I was just like alone in my room. There was no internet at the time, of course. So I turned to music, and I started collecting music, all the music that I liked, especially from the 80s, even though this was the 90s already. So a lot of the Police, a lot of Duran Duran, a lot of British Invasion, I would say, of the 80s. And I had a lot of fun, and that, and reading Road and Track and Car and Driver magazine and all of that. And I was a car nerd and a music nerd.
Did you play any instruments?
And I don't because I don't like reading music. I tried with the piano because they say I have a very good ear, but I just don't like reading music. I find it very boring. So yeah, I mean, my teenage years were like that. I thought I was having fun until I got to college and I saw how socially awkward I was, and how I said the wrong things just because I didn't.
How did that awareness of being socially awkward come about? How did you realize that?
Well, because I was trying to make jokes all the time that were just a little like out of line. But fortunately, I realized like really very soon to observe other people and be like, okay, so that joke wouldn't sit well. This one would be okay. And then from there, I mean, I took it, and I did have many good friends from college, and friendships that I still keep. But yeah, I mean, being a teenager with no internet and lots and lots of CDs and car magazines. It's not a social primer, I would say.
Did you find a peer group though at college?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, well, the thing is that I went to school in Philadelphia, and I like from day one, I met people from other countries in Latin America that had similar interests, like enjoying music and going to parties and just having fun. So we became really good friends, and I mean, I have some friends from the U.S. as well. Of course, I was there. My school at the time was 97% white Caucasian, but so you had to have friends.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, I had a very good group of friends, and we still keep in touch. I would say the only other Dominican guy that was there, we talk probably every 2 weeks, and it's been 30. Oh my gosh, 31 years since we met each other. So yeah,
Even now, you talk up every couple of weeks. Wow.
absolutely. He's a surgeon in Dallas, and I'm living here in Madrid, and we still stay in touch. Absolutely.
That's a wonderful quality, Charlie. It's not shared by everyone. I struggle to think about many people that I've known for that long that I speak to so regularly. So what is it? Is that common for you, or is that like an aberration?
No, it's not that common actually. Like I do keep a chat with my MBA closest friends that we just blurt whatever stupid thing comes to mind and memes and stuff like that. But my friend Ricky was actually a very instrumental person in my life because when I was 19, my first cousin who was my age got cancer and he was operated on in and at the University of Pennsylvania, so it was in Philadelphia where I was studying, and he passed away, and that was the first time that I drowned in sorrow, and Ricky was the one that really helped me get over that.
So it was a friendship forged, if you like, in emotional trauma.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But after that, we learned to enjoy everything. We really learned to enjoy how to savor life, like everyday things, and I think I mean, I've always considered him a very wise guy. Like he has wisdom. He was born with wisdom. I don't know how. It's just one of those people that
Old head on young shoulders, they say.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm really thankful that I found him early on in life.
Yeah, sounds like it. And what did you study at college? What was your subject?
I did international business because like I told you before, I wanted to follow my dad's footsteps, and it was a fun experience. Although international business back then, I mean, I remember we had one of the first email systems that universities had. No Wi-Fi, of course, no internet. I think there was a network called Prodigy that you could dial up and find the earliest versions of web pages, but the email systems basically worked from dumb terminals inside the university in order for you to connect. I mean, it was complicated. I don't even know. I sent like one message to my dad at work, and it was so clunky to do it that I never really used email while at school. So international business was very different. They were talking about. I remember my one professor was talking about the great expansion that would come in Asia, and students were like, "Yeah, right, Asia, come on." I mean, this is 1993 to 1997. China was nowhere near where it is right now.
I just think if you'd listened to him and kind of took a position or learn Mandarin or
Oh
whatever,
yeah,
it's like
oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Very different, very different. But we don't have a crystal ball, so or a time machine, right?
no, no. Life would be boring if we did, I think. I'm curious that you had this deep love of music, exploring in your teens, and you studied international business. Was there any part of you that wanted to stick with what you really loved?
Oh yeah. I mean, a lot of people tell me I sing really well. I'm not gonna sing here. Just a heads up. But
Not
yeah,
now, anyway. Maybe by the end. Maybe by the time we've had an hour together, you might feel comfortable.
maybe. No, but I always thought that being an artist would be a good idea, but then again, all this preconception of no, you have to follow a safe path. You went to business school, you pursue a career in business, stop saying silly things. Artists starve to death. That was the mentality then. course, we didn't have the possibility of expressing yourself in an online platform like YouTube or even uploading your music to Spotify or Apple Music. I mean, you really had to get a record deal in order to get known. So that was out of the question. But I've always liked to sing at parties and go to karaoke's and stuff like that. So I didn't really consider it. I thought about it. It was something like really way in the back of my mind, but never really consider it.
So I need a notepad actually to keep notes of where I go when I meet guests of this podcast face to face. So next to your name is definitely going to be a karaoke bar.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
not that I can sing, but I love being in spaces that light people up. That's great. So international business, you then your career was on the path and you went for it.
It was on the path. I mean, I graduated. I went to work for a direct marketing agency for a year. Then I went to work for 2 years for American Express as an account executive for establishment services. I did really well there for 2 years. Then I went to work for a beer company, and I worked there for 4 years, and I traveled like 70% of the time. By that time, my relationship with my wife was a little bit rocky already, and I said, the thing here is I probably traveled too much, and we need to get to know each other a little better. And then I took a detour and I went to sell BMWs in Puerto Rico. That's what really got us to know each other well. I mean, it was the wrong decision as a career, and it was probably the right decision in my personal life.
Well, you were connecting to the car nerd, the childhood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I was making actually more money selling BMWs than being a sales manager for the Caribbean for a beer company.
Why did you describe that as perhaps the wrong decision career wise? How did you see that as a step back?
That's what I was going to say. The thing is that when you go sell cars, it doesn't matter if it's BMWs or whatever. There's this stigma that car salesmen play a lot of tricks. Let's call it that.
Shady.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially secondhand car salespeople.
Exactly. And then I remember when I tried to shift because I was working every Saturday and some Sundays. So I'm like, no, this is not what I want after 2 years, right? And I started interviewing, and I interviewed with I'm not going to say the company, but I interviewed with a major global food company, and the sales director was telling me, "Sir, yeah, so what can you bring to the table, given that you're a car salesman?" And I'm like, "Sure, the 4 years prior to that, I was a sales manager for 12 distributors in the Caribbean for a major beer company, and I handled over 200 SKUs, about 40 SKUs in each island, different ones. I had to do forecasting, budgeting. I did marketing budgets. I implemented a Pan Caribbean marketing program that was super successful because we went from giving a budget to all 12 distributors to saying, you know what, all of the budget is going to 4 distributors who sell 78% of the volume. So it's a Pareto's law, right? Basically.
Sounds super relevant.
Yeah. And sales had been declining for like 7 years before I got there. In fact, my position was a position that nobody held for more than 18 months prior to, like, in the last 7 years, because nobody knew what the hell to do with it. And I mean, I turned the business around in the Caribbean, but still I was interviewing with this guy telling him, I was very successful at this job. Yeah, but you're a car salesman. I'm like, oh gosh, you know what? I'm not going to get anywhere with you. So again, not a straight line. I went from consumer goods to selling luxury vehicles to trying to get into consumer goods, and that's when I went to pursue my MBA here in Madrid. And after that, I just took a whole bunch of detours.
Mm. So what was it about the MBA program that made you think that was the right thing to do at that time?
Well, in an essence, it was a way of reinventing myself, but also clearly rebranding myself. That the thing that I thought was going to help me, and it did. I mean, I ended up going to work for a wine company that I was recommended to by my former boss in the beer company. I went back to Puerto Rico, although I really wanted to stay in Spain. But after a year in the position, my position got eliminated. I decided to come back to Spain, and friends that I had from the master's program that were working at the university we graduated from recommended me, and I went to work for the university. So I started my career in education, which I've worked on for 8 years. No longer there, but I've worked in education in basically student recruitment. So sales has been my life basically.
Yeah, it's interesting with retrospect, possibly seeing the thread that pulls it all through.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you ever been formally trained in sales, or is it?
No, 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 not at all.
And what is sales to you then? There must be something about that profession that is resonates with you.
Well, the funny thing is that everybody everybody thinks that if you're good at sales, you're good at selling anything, and I don't find it like that. I find it that if you're good, if you believe in a product and you're convinced in that product, and you know that product is either gonna make that person happy, even if it's for a brief time, if that product is going to improve that person's quality of life, which was the case in education, then it's easy to connect with people. I mean, I find it easy to connect with people, right? And then you just have to form a value story around the product that you're trying to sell. And if it's a real value story and you connect with that person, then sales comes easy. And the reason why I liked education that much, and I'm considering going back to education, either building my own business or going back to education, it's because there's been a few times when I run into people that I recruited for the programs that I was promoting. The last one was like 2 months ago. I was going into a restaurant and I get a message via Facebook Messenger. Hey, Charlie, is that you? And I'm like, yeah, that's me at such and such restaurant. She's like, I can't believe it. I'm right outside. So I went outside and, hi, Manuela, how are you? And she was like, oh, I'm so happy to run into you. And she introduced me to her sister and said, this is Charlie. This guy is the best salesperson in the world. And he's the one that convinced me to make the best decision I took ever, which was attend that program. Because her career has been pretty much a straight line going up after she graduated.
I'm sure it hasn't.
I know, I know. She's been very successful professionally, but her saying that to me, it really, really made me think. How can I sell things that really improve people's quality of life? Because that's actually I remember another time that when my son was born, this other former student, she said, I wanna get to know your family because I was single when I was working as a admissions director. I remember we were at a restaurant on a Sunday, just having like an aperitivo, the beer that you have or the vermouth that you have before lunch. And she looked at my son, who was probably one at the time, grabbed him by the face and said, "If only you knew your dad was the one responsible for making me take the best decision in my life." And this was like 7 years away, the first time and the last time that it happened. The last time it was recently, but it's one of those things that really opens your eye and say that makes you think, yeah, I love helping people. I actually do. You know, I love making a positive impact in their life.
And where are you doing that now?
Well, right now I have no plan, but I write about staying positive and resilience, and I do it on X. I'm having fun because I'm making new friends there, but I just feel like I have to get a message out there. I don't know how that's going to look like in 6 months or a year or 5 years, but it's good to see that I'm getting through to some people, and some people write back, and some people DM me saying, your message really resonated with me, because it is a way to help people like I did in education, but it's also a way to connect with people that could be going through a tough period like I went last year. And last year, when you are down so low, when you've hit rock bottom, man, I tell you, Pete, you think there's no way out. And I thought about it. I thought, I even thought, there's really no way out of this. Sadness can be overpowering, but there is a way out.
Did you have suicidal thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, like, really, 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 I'm going to do this today. Fortunately, you know, a bottle of whiskey didn't work. And with, but I said, and I actually got so drunk that day that I actually fell down those stairs and I hit my head here. And then I woke up and I said, Jesus, I could have really died. What a stupid thing. My God. God gave me a second lease on life, but I still continued to be sad for months and months and months. I mean, I no longer thought of harming myself, but I was still sad until January 12th of this year. But again, when you're there, I mean, I would have paid anything. I would have loved to talk to somebody who had gone through what I was going through to tell me, listen, this is what's going to happen. You have to take charge of your life. You have to start recognizing what it is that went wrong, doing self-analysis, getting therapy. I mean, I got professional therapy, so I'm not saying that just by reading you can overcome this, but it certainly helps a lot. And I'm in a much better position. Like right now, I could say I feel happy just because I feel so much inner peace, so much calmness. I think that being calm is the closest thing you're ever going to get to being happy.
Well, there's a whole other podcast episode there, isn't there, about
Oh,
how
absolutely, absolutely.
how do we achieve that, whether it's being calm or being present, or
It's a combination.
is there anything that you do tangibly, specifically to be calm, to be present, to be mindful? Is that do you mean that as well?
Yes, absolutely. Well, for one thing, I always thought of meditation as this woo woo thing that only people that were really into yoga would do. And I started meditating. In fact, I have an app that tracks, how many days I've meditated. I'm on my 49th day streak, but I actually started 5 months ago meditating.
What app is that?
It's called Balance, and I highly recommend it to anyone because it's free for 1 year. I don't know how long they're going to do that, but I'm certainly going to renew, after the first year because you actually get all sorts of meditations, all sorts of beginner levels. You get guided meditations, unguided meditations. You have meditations to go to sleep if you're up in the middle of the night, which I've used. You have early morning meditations. You even have one that's called something like like a morning brew, which is a way for you to take 5 minutes to just enjoy your coffee, being mindful. People around me, they tell me it's that and the combination of the reading that I do and all that. But people tell me like you react to stuff a lot more calm.
You do come across, and excuse my language, as a really chill motherfucker. Like you just you, you've got this vibe about you. Do you know what I mean? And I guess what you're saying is if you and I were having this conversation, 6 or 9 months ago, it would be a very different Charlie that I would be interacting with.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No, 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 no. Absolutely. I mean, I still love to go out and make jokes and whatever, but in my day to day, I mean, I remember just going ballistic on people cutting in front of me in traffic. And I would get this bad blood for like 3 hours after it happened.
And that's only affecting you, the person that cut you up. They don't give a shit. They don't even know you exist.
Exactly. The guy was probably smoking pot or didn't even realize and was listening to music.
Wow.
And I was, here I am hoping this guy's going to die.
Isn't that
and
crazy?
The guy doesn't even know I exist. So it's kind of like where I read, I don't know if this was Mandela in one of the books or a few books that I read, like being resentful or one of these is like drinking the poison and hoping the other person is going to die or get sick. And it's like that. It's ridiculous. So now, like, this is something to me happens because it's not that it has stopped happening. People are driving like crazy still, but now if it happens to me, I'm like, oh wow, may God be with him. I hope he gets wherever he's going, safely. I mean, it doesn't even move my needle at all.
A quote comes to mind. A Greek philosopher, Epicurus, I think it was, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react that defines your reality." And this is true now as it was then.
Oh, absolutely. And you don't think about it much when you're not working on yourself, but it happens so many times in the day when you're not aware, like people cutting in front of you in the metro, or you were walking towards an empty seat in the bus, and somebody goes and gets it, and you're like, and all of that starts building up, building up, building up, and before you know it, you explode with the person that least deserved it, right?
That you're probably closest to.
Exactly, exactly. So it's not worth it. I mean, it's just be mindful of those things and just say to yourself. And I've done a lot of exercises. Like when I start ruminating on stuff, I start thinking, Carlos, Charlie, get the hell away from there. Get out of there. Stop thinking. You're not gonna solve that, right? Or when I start thinking about the past and seeing, I could have done this different. I could have done this different. I could have done this different. Man, there's nothing I can do about the past. It's gone. It's yesterday. There's nothing I can do about the future, but plan and work for it. I have to do what it is, what's going on now. Be here, present in the moment. And believe me, it makes life a lot easier. I mean, and it's not that my life is problem free. I'm far from it. But worrying about the problem now of what's going to happen tomorrow. It's worrying about the same problem twice, you know? So you have to basically act on it because you know what? Another thing you read it, and it's funny, is that I think it's something like 90% of our problems never come true. So we were about 90% of, of shit that's never going to happen. You know?
And arguably even more than that. I mean, that's probably being optimistic.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, how many times are you going into a conversation with somebody you have to confront, and you think the conversation is going to go one way? You're planning what to say, and you're planning how to be clever, because you don't want to be that person that after the conversation says, "Shit, I should have said this," right? And then you start the conversation, and it goes a completely different way, and you're like, "Oh wow, that went well. That went better than I expected." We have to be very self-aware.
Yeah, it is easier said than done. This thing about being present and you know focusing on the now.
It takes work, but you have to start somewhere. I mean, I do see my progress, not because people tell me, which they do, but just because and this has happened in January 12th until now, so 5 months, 5 6 months. My life has turned around for the positive, and anyone can do it. Anyone can do it because I've worked on so many things like childhood issues and self control and mastering my emotions and trying to talk to my 8-year-old self and trying to talk to my 80-year-old self and doing the exercise of uh, hugging my 8-year-old and saying everything's going to be all right, and all of those things. People think it's just fancy woo stuff. It works. It works. It's really powerful, actually.
But tell me about those conversations. The one with your 8-year-old self.
Well, that's probably going to be so personal that I might not be able to stay like all together. But it's just until my dad married his current wife, which is really my mom. She's the one that raised me. I had a really really rough childhood, and I was scared of my dad up until that time, and my dad changed for the better with this lady. He's the sweetest guy. He's a super nice guy. He's been a fantastic father.
What does rough mean to you? I'm just thinking about in terms of resonance with our listener.
Well, I mean, like physical stuff,
Okay,
and
physical stuff.
and
Yeah,
being punished and stuff, and yelling, but that was not him. I mean, he was undergoing a very difficult divorce with my birth mom, who passed away. God rest her soul.
and the stress at work, which you've shared about already.
Stress at work. I mean, it could
Yeah,
really change
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Plus,
yeah.
I mean, and I'm not saying it was right. I'm just saying they were different times as well. Different, this is late '70s, early '80s. Nobody knew what we know now. It was just you had to toughen up a kid, and that was it, right?
I'm resonating with what you're saying, by the way, just so you know. Yeah.
Uh, okay, yeah. Going back to my 8-year-old and telling him everything's going to be all right, everything's going to be um, better, and life is going to get better, even though you're going to hit some some bumps, very big bumps along the road. Like I said, I think it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, that we should start teaching resilience and self-awareness from a very early stage. And this is probably what I would go and back and do with my 8-year-old is, be strong. Life is not going to happen as you want it. Life is not going to be a straight line.
Funny, I've heard that before somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So be mindful, stay strong, and things will be all right. But I mean, I can't go back to talk to my 8-year-old. I can only do that exercise, and I can only say to myself now, hey, I'm 48. I can reinvent myself at any time, at any stage. And that's what I'm trying to do right now.
Take out the word try, and I think you got the nail on the head there. Say it again.
Yeah, okay, I am reinventing myself right now. Yeah, and I'm having fun in the process. Again, like I said, I'm getting to meet a lot of people. I One of the realizations that I've had in this process is many people think that opportunities are only for the young. And of course, there are the outliers. Colonel Sanders with KFC, and all these other entrepreneurs that started in their 50s. But there's a lot more people, a heck of a lot more people that have reinvented themselves in their 40s and 50s. They just live quieter lives. They just live private lives, which is actually what I want to do. I don't want to be like a huge celebrity and then give up my privacy. I just want to be successful, helping people, making good money that allows me to live a financially worry free life. And we can do it. We can all do it. We can all do it, and it doesn't matter at what stage we're in.
Just talking about money, what are you doing for money at the moment? Because you said about your freelance agency not working out.
Well, no, I'm still in my 9 to 5.
Oh, of
Uh,
course, you got the 9 to 5 job. Yeah.
I'm planning on what it is that I want to do, and in which way I can truly help people. I mean, like I said, I write on X, and I'm growing, formerly known as Twitter, but I don't want to base my growth on explicitly saying that I'm growing on X and selling a course on how to grow on X, and then I'll grow by selling a course on how to what I'm saying. It sounds. I mean, kudos to whoever does it and helps other people out. But to me, it just sounds a little like I make content on how to grow, and I grow by how to make content on how to grow. I don't know.
A little bit incestuous in a way, kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So again, I have nothing against people who find their business like that. I want to try in a different way. And at some point, I will reach a large following, and people are going to ask, "How did you do it?" And then I can say, "This is how I did it," but not by selling the book for $20 on how to get people to pay $20 for your book.
So you got a full-time job that's bringing in the money, that's kind of paying the bills and keeping your head above water. It sounds like it from our interaction and on Telegram that it's taking a lot of time from you, time and energy from you.
It is.
Can
It
relate to
is.
that.
It's highly demanding. It's here in Spain. In Spain, the salaries are not fantastic. So, but I mean, it's there, but it takes a lot of time, and then also working on growing and reaching out to people on X. It takes a lot of time. But again, I'm having fun in the process. It's something that if you're having fun, it's not an issue for you to take out an extra hour or you know hour and a half, 45 minutes, whatever it is you feel you want to dedicate to.
And do you have a sense? You mentioned earlier that we don't have crystal balls or time machines. Do you have a sense, though, Charlie, of where you are now, of where you are headed, or are you comfortable and confident just to stay, not just to stay where you are, doing what you're doing, trusting that life will reveal its magnificent self to you?
Oh, absolutely. I'm scared shitless.
Uh,
I,
Good.
but I have to keep on doing something. I have to keep on taking action. And if it doesn't work, take a different action. What I found is never going to happen is like I said at the beginning, nobody's going to save me. Life is not going to cut me any breaks. I'm not going to suddenly be discovered by somebody and say, wow, this guy is a great salesperson. Why don't I hire him for my company? Because on top of that there's a lot of labeling, and like ageism is ingrained here in society. So, and if I want to live here close to my kids, there's not going to be a magical day when I'm going to get discovered as a great salesperson and say, you know what, you deserve this job that pays you 3 times, or that is going to set you for life. So I have to carve my own path. And am I scared? Absolutely. I'm having fun at the time. I keep on meeting new friends. I mean, here we are. You and I are talking here, and we'll see where this goes. I mean, meeting friends that are in the same position, I find them as a support group of people that are like minded, and that can be part of your crew, part of your tribe to help you. If you're falling a little behind and they're a little going a little ahead, they can help you catch up. I'm not going to say pull you, but help you catch up, right?
The reinvention tribe,
The reinvention tribe, absolutely, absolutely.
because you and I can't be the only ones that are reinventing themselves. I'm 55, a couple of years older than you, and I'm in the process of reinventing myself. And you and I can't be the only ones.
Oh, we're not. We're not. I mean, I keep in touch with about 10 or 12 participants of this writers bootcamp that I participated in.
That's how you and I met.
And that's how you and I met. And I'm gonna go out and say it. It's Dan Coe's writers bootcamp, and I enjoyed it like crazy. And this is no advertising or affiliate marketing, but I really enjoyed it. But I keep in touch with them, and it's incredible because these are people that are at different stages in their life. There's one that's a dentist, another one was a physician, and then another one was an engineer, another one, and they're all looking to reinvent themselves. We are in different geographical zones. Like one of them is in Asia, a few are in the States, a few are in the UK. I'm here in Madrid. I'm sure that out of the other participants, we could find, dozens and dozens more. I think that a lot of people are realizing that following the traditional path and following the traditional system is not going to cut it. That's why I think that the best universities or higher education systems, the ones that are going to be most successful are the ones that are going to show you how to navigate life, the real life, not the conventional path of follow the corporate job, follow
21st century, where we are now, not where we were 150 years ago.
Exactly. Exactly. There are still schools out there that if you are going to their business program, you have to study calculus as part of the curriculum. And it's like, why? I studied calculus in my university and I never ever used it again. Plus, there's plenty of calculators that can do advanced calculations should you need them. You know? And it's like, well, it's a discipline. Oh yeah, but there are a lot of other disciplines, focus on psychology, focus on sales, focus on self-reliance, focus on spirituality, on the stuff that's really going to matter and that's really going to help you navigate life, no matter how modern it gets.
The You mentioned Danco's Writers Bootcamp there. For me, there were kernels in there of the reinvention that we've kind of touched on in this conversation. What was it in the Writers Bootcamp that made you respond the way you do? You said you absolutely loved it. What aspects of it that kind of really resonated with you with where you are now?
Well, I mean, I think we're lucky enough that we are part of a test group that's trying out the new application that Dan is using, Cortex, and it's fun using it. It takes its time to get used to it. In my case, it's been complicated, doing both a 9 to 5 to 3 hours commute, visiting my kids and catching up with the bootcamp. But also the sense of community. The last time I felt that I had this sense of bonding and meeting new friends was when I pursued my MBA. But we knew we were all going to be stuck together for 13 months in the same classroom because that's the way it was. So either you learn to live with that other person or you love that other person. But it was a different experience. It was face to face. We were all there. We all went to party like every weekend. This was a period of 5 years. And I think it's just that our motivation and our goals are so clearly aligned. The people that you meet there, they will have an impact. They are already have an impact in life. I've seen this in a lot of testimonials. Oh, but the sense of community, and I was always like, yeah, right. You can download the course and probably just get as much as in value as you would do in the course. No, no way. I'm the first one to say it. Without the community and the feedback that you get from it and the camaraderie and again, looking at even things that I want to write about from a different perspective, I think it was just great. I think it was worth it.
This group that you talked about, that's separate to the Telegram group that we're in, presumably, is it? Because I'm thinking, have I missed out on this?
I've been pulled into like 4 different groups, mastermind groups, right?
Uh-huh.
And there's a larger one. There's one on X where it's 162 participants. There's no communication there, so it's just like follow these 162 people. There's the one on Telegram. Then there's one that was formed on Discord. Then so there's a few, and I decided to sign up for a few of them, thinking I was crazy, and then I ran into other people that are in all three in all 3 groups, and it's funny because we see that we have the same intention, right?
Because you spoke there about the struggle with your full-time job and doing the writing, and I have really struggled. I've not even completed week 1 of the Writers Bootcamp, just with everything that's going on, and we can take this offline and have a conversation about it, because old Pete is still kind of there, ready with his stick to beat me with. Do you know what I mean? In terms of not sticking through. But there are so many aspects of that program that resonate with me that I'm annoyed and frustrated with myself that I haven't made the time and created the energy to stick with it in the way that I thought that I might be able to when I signed up for it. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense because I actually had to extend the hours of the days that, and I still, I mean, like I haven't started with my first newsletter. I started writing it. It should have been done 2 weeks ago, but I did start with the threads and I completed the curriculum and all that. But you have to keep in mind, I mean, my 9 to 5 is actually 8 to 6 because of the way it works here in Spain,
Plus the commute.
plus the commute. So I wake up at 5:30. I leave on a 6:50 bus. Get to work at 8. Man, on some days I go to see my kids. When I don't see them, I get back to where I'm living at around 8:30, and then at that time I have something quick for dinner, and then I start working on that. Then I go to bed 11:30, and get 6 hours of sleep, 5.5, and then rinse and repeat. So it's hard, but I know this. I mean, if we're talking about life not being a straight line, I know that this is not going to keep on going straight on for the rest of my life. So I know that it's an effort that I'm making to eventually get to where I want to
And
be.
you talked about developing skills earlier, fairly early in the conversation, and I guess this is part of it as well, developing that writing skill.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Learning how to synthesize, learning because, and Dan talks a lot about this, you don't have to come up with original material all the time. You can just synthesize it and then give it your own perspective and how it applies to your life. And that's what's going to make you difference. And I found it to be true because, I mean, even in the books that I've read, there are a few concepts that are there, even some quotes from the same Marcus Aurelius, or they're there, but the author gives them a different angle, and they're two completely different books. And then learning how to structure your thinking. I love to talk a lot, and I like to develop a conversation and this and that. But when I sit and I start looking at a blank screen and I try to start writing, oh man, that's a very lonely place, a very scary place.
Yeah, you're the only one though, Charlie. You're the only one that feels that way.
Yeah, exactly. I came up with the concept of writer's block.
Yeah, it's really cool, the elements inside Cortex that kind of just give you different avenues to think about the same thing.
Absolutely.
If you phrase it as a problem, what's the benefit, what's the goal, what's the goal for the reader? Writing for the reader is just.
What's the big idea that you want to pursue in your writing? Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, so I actually have some vacation coming up, and I'm going to be with my kids, but I'm definitely going to make time to write a little bit more.
This has turned into a mini commercial for Dan Coe's Writers Bootcamp. I'll have a word with him, see if he wants to sponsor this episode. No, only joking. So you used the phrase completely different there earlier, and there are two people that are completely different, the 8-year-old you and the 80-year-old you. You mentioned earlier about having a conversation.
Yeah.
What's that conversation like? What does 80-year-old Charlie look back on?
Actually, my conversation, since I haven't gotten there, I'm talking to my 80-year-old right now, and I'm saying, relax, I've got this. Just enjoy the fact that you got there, but always remember the journey to get there and all it took for us to get there. Right? The 80-year-old, if he was talking back to me, he would say, wow, Charlie, look at this. We wanted to write a story, and we wrote one that people want to read. We wrote a good one. We had a good ride. We doubted ourselves, being 47 and all of a sudden divorced, and she was the one financially well off, and all of a sudden finding myself like, what's this? It's scary as hell, but I'm gonna make it. Oh, absolutely. I'm doing this.
And what a powerful example to your kids as well, to be a role model for them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one thing that it's a side benefit. Like, I want my kids to be proud of me, but I need to be proud of myself first, and then that will follow. I'm sure they will. Right now, I'm just focusing on creating memories with them, and right now they say they have the coolest dad ever, and I'm not doing anything super special with them. I just dedicate my time wholly to them.
And you're also, I think you're potentially underestimating your impact, is that you are a living, breathing example of the resilience and the self-awareness that you wish that you'd had when you were younger. They've got that as a it doesn't have to be explicit, It can be implicit and it can be
Absolutely.
almost go in by osmosis, but that's what they are experiencing on a regular basis.
Absolutely. Actually, my conversations with them are completely different. Like I know that if they hurt themselves when they're playing, I've gone from saying you have to be more mindful of what you're doing, to just like hugging them and pulling them closer and saying, I'm sorry that you hurt yourself. Are you okay? And then when they calm down, saying we have to be more aware of when we play. It's okay to have fun, but we need to be mindful of where it is that we're playing and so on and so forth. And I'm like, wow, sometimes I think about it and I'm like, this is not the dad that I was. I mean, I wasn't even a dad. Like I was hooked to my iPad and Candy Crush for years. And that's something that I got over it. I deleted that shit. I was on level 12,600 and something. So when it was time to when I had to dedicate time to my kids, it was just like, leave me alone. I'm busy. And now it's like, okay, how can I make the best that I can with my kids, and how can I not push them, but basically like give them a nudge towards where it is that they should be going, using their own.
Is that one of the ways you think that your now ex-wife has helped you from the outside, that almost not taking you away from your kids, but creating that space has made you make decisions which are going to be the better for your children?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I had to look back on stuff and realize this myself, which it's not the way that I wish would have turned out. I mean, I wish she would have just said, okay, let's go get couples therapy, and you have to, realize this and see what you're doing wrong with your life, or with your attitude. But, it's helped me. And I actually sat down to have a coffee with her like 3 weeks ago, and I thanked her for it. It's not something that we're going to laugh about ever when we look back, but it's, yeah.
You know what the definition of comedy is, Charlie? I've heard it said that comedy is tragedy deferred.
Yeah, that's true.
But maybe you will. Maybe the 80-year-old Charlie will have had sufficient time passed to be able to laugh about it.
Yeah, well, at the moment, I mean, it's too recent. The
I
wound
get
is
that.
still pretty much
I
there.
get that. I get that.
But yeah, yeah. And in the moment, I mean, I think I'll just keep on working on myself like this, and trying to not find a straight line forward, but definitely learn how to handle the winding road that's still ahead of us for sure.
One question I do want to ask you though is, what does Charlie, the best salesperson in the world, need to sell the Charlie that's sat in front of me right now? What do you need to be sold on?
Uh, I think I need to be sold on the idea that I already have enough information to pursue what I want to pursue. But it's hard. I mean, I'm working on it, but I still have self doubts, and I write about not having self doubts. Of course, I'm the first one that's pushing people to not have self doubt. But I need to be sold on the idea that you are doing absolutely 100% what you should be doing. That would be the one that I need. The one thing that I would need to be sold right now.
Charlie, can I just share something with you?
Absolutely.
With what you've just the microcosm of the last hour and 15 minutes that we've had together to explore your non-straight line journey, I can 100% avowedly assure you that you have everything that you need in you right now for what you're doing. And I wish that I was on X. I'm not, and I'm not sure that I will be. I think I will explore using Substack and LinkedIn for my writing as I make my way through the Writers Bootcamp. But where you are now with what you've described to me as what you're writing about and what you want to continue writing about, you have it.
Thank you, Pete.
You're the real deal. You've lived it, you've
Thank you.
experienced it, you've worked through it, you've gained that thing that is so difficult to get, which is perspective on your situation and what you've been through. Because let's face it, it is a lot easier to say, oh, woe is me. Oh, shit. Oh, this happened again, whatever. But to be able to pick yourself back up and do the hard work that you've evidently done on yourself over the last few months, you've got it, man. You're going to get more, you're going to acquire more, but with where you are right now, with what you're doing, you've got it.
Thank you, Pete.
And I'm not a particularly good salesperson, but I do recognize what it is. I'm a maximizer. So I don't know if you're familiar with StrengthsFinder, the Clifton Strengths psychological profile, but Maximizer is one of my natural strengths, and seeing where people are great is just it's intuitive, and you've got it. So just lean into it. Yeah.
I'm very glad to hear you say that, because again, I'm having fun. It's hard, but that's part of life. Even when you're having fun, you have to, it's going to be hard. So thank you.
Yeah. No, you're welcome. Thank you for sharing your. It's you've shared bits of your non-straight. It's impossible to capture everyone's complete non-straight line journey, but just the echoes, if you like, that we've seen of your winding path through life has inspired me. And let's face it, between you and me, Charlie, listener, if you can just close your ears for a second, Charlie, I'm doing this podcast for me, just totally selfish, okay? Because
absolutely fine.
because I know that apart from anything else, opportunity comes attached to people. And the more people that I'm connected to in a real, authentic, almost vulnerable way, I know that magic can only come as a result of that. I don't necessarily know how or what or where, but I know that.
Oh yeah.
I know that life happens through relationship, and relationship happens through communication. So I thought, well, why not I just start a podcast? It just gives me an excuse to talk to anyone that I want to talk to about anything.
Absolutely, and it's a great idea. Yeah, I mean, if you consider it, the success level of a podcast, once you've got 21 of them out there, that only 1% of podcasts make it past the 21st episode. So keep on talking to people,
yeah. Absolutely. And talking about that 21st episode, so let's be honest, we don't need to pretend, because when we launch, you will subscribe to the Not a Straight Line podcast because you want to get the notification when your episode lands, right? Okay. So you'll be in the first batch that come out. I'm filling the tank, so to speak, at the moment. But you see that 21st episode drop and you're like, oh, Pete got to 21. You say, oh my God, that 21st episode, I really want to listen to that. I really want to hear that person. Who is it? Who comes to mind? Whose non-straight line journey do you want to hear?
Probably me again. No, I'm kidding. No, I don't know. Who do I want to see on the 21st episode?
You see it drop into your phone and you go, well done, Pete got to 21. It's like, oh, that's a banger. I really want to hear that one.
Dan Cole.
I'll take that. Thanks for leaning into that space. I was kind of hoping that you would say Danco. I didn't want to put the words in your mouth, but I would love to explore. I mean, he's fairly open about his story, but I'm sure there are aspects of that journey which are going to be fun to explore together. Really value our time and appreciate our time together, Charlie. It's been amazing.
Cool.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Not a Straight Line. If this conversation helped to reorient your internal compass or inspired you in any way, please let us know by heading to podcast.notastraightline.life/rate and leave a rating and review. Thanks as always to Matthew Bliss of MB Podcast Services for his exquisite engineering of this episode. If you'd like him to help you with your podcast, contact details are in the show notes. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, or there's someone whose non-straight line journey you'd just love to hear, then please visit podcast.notastraightline.life/guest. Thanks for being here with me, and I'll see you next week for another amazing, deep, inspiring non-straight line journey. Love you.